What if I told you the amp behind some of rock's most legendary tones just got smaller? Sounds a little unbelievable, right? But it's true. Jimmy Page, the guitar icon himself, has just launched a brand new version of his signature Sundragon amp. This one's called the Nymph Edition, and let me tell you, it's already got guitarists everywhere talking. And not just talking, actually excited. Because this little amp could be the answer to a lot of problems players have been struggling with for years. You know how it is, you want that huge, roaring tone, but you don't want to drag a giant amp to every gig or wake up the neighbors when you practice. Well, this just might be the solution you've been waiting for. So stick with me here, because in the next few minutes I'm gonna walk you through exactly what makes the Sundragon Nymph so special. Why it's not just a gimmick. Why smaller doesn't mean worse. And even a few tips on how to squeeze the most out of it. Or even get close to that classic Page tone on your own, whether you buy this amp or not. Ready? Let's dive in. Alright, let's start with the big question, what exactly is the Sundragon Nymph? Basically, it's a smaller, more portable version of the original Sundragon amp. That amp was designed to recreate the raw, gritty sound Jimmy Page used back in the early Led Zeppelin days. And when it came out, players went nuts over it. It became this sort of holy grail for collectors and pros. But here's the catch, that thing was big. Heavy. Expensive. And honestly, way too loud for a lot of us who just want to jam at home or play smaller gigs. That's where the Nymph comes in. Same soul, same vibe, but scaled down. You still get all that crunchy warmth and dynamic response people loved about the original. But now it's actually manageable. You can carry it. You can crank it up in a small room without getting evicted. And that's kind of awesome, isn't it? Now, just to be clear. This isn't just a cheap, mini version of the big amp. No corners cut here. The Nymph is hand-built. It uses point-to-point wiring, just like the original. Vintage-style components. And it's got that same beautiful retro look that makes you feel like you're holding a piece of history. Honestly, it looks like something Jimmy himself would have had sitting backstage in '69, waiting to melt some faces. And here's where a lot of people get it wrong. They assume that smaller amps mean smaller sound. But that's just not true. Actually, lower wattage amps can give you bigger tone at a more practical volume. Why? Because you can actually push them harder. You can get that creamy, saturated sound without deafening yourself, or everyone else around you. That's why so many pros actually use little amps in the studio. They just sound better when you can crank them up and let them breathe. And the Nymph? That's exactly what it's designed for. Big tone, small package. Makes sense, right? And here's something really cool. Playing on a smaller amp actually forces you to pay more attention to your touch and dynamics. You start hearing how every little change in your playing affects the sound. That's part of what made Jimmy Page's style so magical, the way he could make his guitar whisper 1 second and roar the next. You can actually feel that with an amp like the Nymph. It reacts to you. Now, if you're thinking about getting one, or just want to get the most out of a smaller amp you already have, let me give you a few pro tips. First off, get friendly with your guitar's volume knob. This is one of Jimmy's classic tricks. Roll it back for clean, sparkly chords. Then crank it back up when you need that gritty overdrive. The Nymph is perfect for this kind of dynamic playing. It responds beautifully. Here's another little trick. If you want even more sustain or crunch for solos, try adding a vintage-style overdrive or boost pedal. You don't need anything crazy expensive. Just something simple to push the amp a little harder. You'd be amazed how much extra juice you can get out of it. And don't forget, speaker choice matters, too. Even though the Nymph is designed to sound great right out of the box, experimenting with different cabinets or even just miking it differently can completely change the vibe. That's part of the fun. So here's a question for you. What do you think about this whole trend of legendary players releasing smaller, more accessible versions of their gear? Have you ever tried a mini amp before? Did it surprise you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop me a comment below and let me know what you're playing through these days. I always enjoy hearing about other players' setups. And hey, if you enjoyed this little dive into the Sundragon Nymph, you're gonna want to check out my video on how Jimmy Page actually dialed in his tone on the first Zeppelin album. Seriously, there's some really fun stuff in there. Before you go, do me a favor, if you found this video helpful, give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps, and it lets me keep making more videos like this one. And of course, keep those comments coming, I love hearing from you guys. Alright, that's it from me today. Now grab your guitar, fire up that amp, and go make some noise. See you next time.